Welcome to a Business Minute with Lily Lopez, presented by the South Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Today we're at the offices of Greenberg Traurig with Mr. Cesar Alvarez. He's an icon of this community, and we had the privilege and honor to present him with the Lifetime Achievement Award of the South Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce about 8 weeks ago. And it was just an amazing experience to hear him speak. But more than that, I know him through Facts About Cuban Exile, and I've heard everything that he's had to say about his life, about his career. And I got emotional when he talked about everything that he's gone through and what he's made of himself and what he's made of a name, not only nationally, but internationally. So Cesar, it is such a pleasure to have you here today, to be with me in the Business Minute and just to spend some time talking about your life and your career. But what really caught my eye was the day that we present the award to you. And you were emotional, and you were talking about the Cuban Americans, our parents, our grandparents, that they are the greatest generations of Cuban Americans. And that touched my heart, and I thought of my father, I thought of my grandmother. And could you elaborate on that before anything? Because for me, the human qualities are what counts in the individual, besides all the many accolades and everything that you deserve. But that human thing inside you, when you talked about your parents and the greatest generation, I want to share that with the view. You got to the United States when you were 13.
I was 13. My father had gone to law school with Fidel Castro, so he knew him, and he was one of the few Cubans at the time, of course we forget this, that did not like Fidel Castro.
Right, okay.
Right, because a lot of Cubans actually, we were kind of hopeful about Fidel Castro, and so immediately he took us out of Cuba, so we came here in 1960, and when we came here in 1960, within a week of being here, he sat. There's four of us and kids, three boys and a girl, and he sat us down, and he said to us, "You're never going to go back to Cuba." This was in 1960. He moved us to North Miami. There was not a Cuban within a 10-mile radius North Miami. I couldn't speak English. I mean, I was horrified. He said, "You will not be going back to Cuba. Cuba is too unstable." I said, "This is your new country. So assimilate, learn the culture, learn the language, but always be proud
of your heritage.
Or your heritage.
Of your heritage, exactly.
Of being Cuban.
Of being Cuban.
Of being Hispanic. Never forget that."
That was so beautiful, and those words have always stayed with you. Have always stayed with you, and Cesar, and thinking of that, I think of what they went through, what they had to leave for us. So,
and they're our greatest generation.
The greatest generation.
And we sometimes forget.
We do.
And we can't.
And we can't. And I always tell everybody. And you know what? My daughter, I told her, you have to learn Spanish because your grandmother was a teacher, your great-grandmother was a teacher. All of my family have been teachers. And your grandmother would not be proud of you if you didn't speak Spanish. So I made her learn Spanish, and she writes Spanish, and she speaks Spanish perfectly. And that's the way it has to be. We have to preserve our culture. And I admire that in you.
And people forget what they went through.
Exactly.
What heroes they were.
Exactly.
And particularly today. Today people say, well, they were too reactionary, too this, too that.
Exactly. No.
They were.
Exactly. Generation. So Cesar, now talking about you, your career, how you started, and my God, you built Greenberg Traurig. So tell me briefly your experience in all these years. How has it been?
Well, it started back in 1972 when Mel Greenberg, who founded Greenberg Traurig, he contacted me at the University of Florida. I was one of 3 Cuban lawyers, potential Cuban lawyers there, because I like to say, Mel Greenberg was the first lawyer in Miami to realize that the Cubans were not going back to Cuba as quickly as we thought we were going to go. I was going to start with my brother, as we're going to hang our shingles, and at that time there may have been 4 or 5 Cuban lawyers that practiced in Miami. But Mel said, "Hey."
That was nice.
He was a great salesman, so he said, and even when he called me at the University of Florida, I said, "Look, I don't think that I want to. I'm not going to come with a large law firm." They had a total of 10 lawyers at the time. I thought that was a large law firm.
Right, exactly.
But he convinced me, and he convinced me that my brother, who was a real trial lawyer, and that's what he loved to do, that he would be better off, instead of starting with a small little shop, to be with the U.S. attorney or the state attorneys, because there he would actually learn how to litigate in court and pick juries, et cetera, et cetera. So he said, for you who are a transactional lawyer, you want to be a corporate lawyer, you'll be better here and he'll be better there. And I spoke to my brother, and we decided that maybe Mel was making some sense.
Which he was.
Which he was, and then he asked me the question that put me over the top. He said to me, well, how much do you think a successful partner here makes? And I said, I know this game. I ain't going to give him a number so high that he's going to say, well, no one can do that. So I came up with the highest number I could possibly, in good conscience, tell him without, being somewhat credible. And it's happened to have been $50,000.
Which was a lot.
Which is in 1972.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
And he was a big, tall fellow, and he leaned back and started laughing. And he said, Cesar is the most junior partner here, in a bad year, only pays $50,000 in taxes. It's really bad. I said, you make a lot of sense, man. So that's how I started.
And that's how you started.
I was the number, I think it was lawyer number 9. And I was put to do real estate, because that's what Cubans were doing. They were buying and beginning to build houses and apartments, et cetera, into the real estate. I kept saying, I don't want to practice real estate. I'm a corporate lawyer. I have an MBA.
Exactly.
I have. I know what preferred stock is. I know what what a public offering is, et cetera, et cetera. So for the first 6 months of my life, I was a real estate lawyer, until luckily the market got hot. They needed a corporate associate, and because I kept telling everybody
what you wanted to do,
MBA and have an MBA, and have an MBA, they put me there, and they sent me to work with this gentleman named Larry Hoffman, who then who was one of the founders, was Greenberg Traurig Hoffman.
Well, okay.
And then Hoffman was a corporate lawyer, and later became the CEO, and he was sort of, he took me as his mentor.
Yes.
This happened. I got assigned to Larry Hoffman the week that my father unfortunately died, very early at 50 years old.
Oh, so young.
I always call Larry my Jewish father.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, so he was a wonderful man.
He was a wonderful.
How many lawyers do you have now here in Greenberg Traurig?
We have 2,200.
2,200?
2,200, a couple more than we had then.
A couple more, yeah. You were 9. You were number 9, right?
Right.
Now it's 2,200.
Right.
So it's a life of successes, and your dreams came true, and you've had a beautiful life, and you've provided an opportunity for other lawyers, right? I imagine you have been a mentor to so many lawyers.
I've tried to be. I try to pay it back.
But anything in particular that stands out that we feel that we send that message to our viewers?
I think as the chamber and trying to send a business message, which it is that I think Miami has had an incredible history.
Yes, it has.
But the best is just to come.
Oh, I like
because if you will give me a couple minutes where you
yeah, of course, absolutely.
Just to show you.
Absolutely.
James Michener, who wrote Hawaii and a few other big books, wrote one called The Caribbean. And he spent 4 years at the University of Miami researching the Caribbean.
Okay.
And so when he writes The Caribbean and spends 4 years here, he's very intrigued why Cubans are so business-oriented and politically conservative.
Right.
That's not, the trace of immigrants of those.
Exactly.
So while he's writing The Caribbean, he comes up with this theory, which I think actually makes sense, is that Cuba was the last colony of Spain. And the last one to abolish slavery and all that. So what happens is that as all the Spanish colonies began to gain their freedom and wars of independence, there were two groups of people in those countries that needed to leave because they were not necessarily welcome there. and those were the politicians that were there from the crown, and one, and number two, the business people that were affiliated with them. So because Cuba was the entry point and the exit point for Spain,
exactly,
during the 1800s, what you had is this massive migration of the political class that already lost the last place, so they tend to be more conservative, and the business class, and they began to go, and where would they go? They go to Havana, and they begin to aggregate in Havana, and Havana, and Havana.
Exactly.
And so what do Miami get? Miami gets the cream of
well,
that.
the cream of the crop.
But I tell you, is I give you that as a premise, because the important part for Miami now is, just like Havana was the aggregating point in the 1800s, Miami is today. Because think about what's happening, exactly the same thing in every Latin American country where there's issues, etc. Where's the people that are educated and have money, etc. come? They come to Miami, and so we are having an infusion of brain power and capital, which is unlike anything. So I told you about Michener, so you realize that within a short distance away, the concentrating points of Cuba in the 1800s and the concentrating points of Miami. And I think that speaks very highly for what's going to happen here in Miami, and it's going to happen to the chamber, at the Hispanic chamber, etc.
And a quick message to the younger generations of grandchildren of Cuban Americans, great-grandchildren of Cuban Americans, a message for them.
Do not forget your heritage.
Your heritage. Do not forget your roots.
Your roots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your language. I tell everybody, no te olvides de tu idioma. De tu idioma.
It's critical. I mean, look at Miami today. When I got to Miami, you couldn't get a job unless you spoke English. Okay?
Now it's the other way around.
Now, the best jobs go to somebody who's bilingual.
Absolutely.
But if you're not bilingual, you better speak Spanish, because there's not a lot of the other jobs around. So
absolutely.
Your language skills, don't minimize them. They are quite important.
Yes,
and don't assume
Yes.
that you know Spanish because you speak a little Spanish at home.
Cuban, kitchen Spanish, no. You need the real Spanish.
Study
Castellano.
Study Spanish. Because I think that's an important part of that. And
yes.
And so you can, if you can truly be bilingual, that's an asset.
That's an asset. Well, Cesar, it's been such an honor and a privilege just to have the opportunity to interview you, and the time that you took to be with me. It fills my heart. So thank you so very much. Honored, privileged.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me in your program.